Hi, I'm Brent Ozar, and in this session, I'm going to be talking about a 300 level guide to career internals. It's kind of funny how this started out. When I originally was thinking about building a session, I would look at some conferences and I'd see a 500 level session. I'm like, what would a 500 level career development session look like? And then I started sketching one out. I'm like, oh, okay, here are the things that I think are kind of important in terms of hacking your career. And I feel like I'm qualified to do that. And I say that because I feel like I'm quote unquote famous. Like I walk into a lot of conferences and people are like, oh, we know you, which usually only happens if either you're doing a really good job or you've completely screwed a job, like you're famous for destroying data or something like that. So I seem to be doing kind of okay. I am by no means ever going to sell you anything. There's anything regarding careers or professional development. I'm never going to write a professional development book. I'm never going to sell a professional development training series of any kind. It's important to me to help you avoid some of the same mistakes that I made along the way, and I don't consider myself an expert at careering by any means, like not even close. If you want an expert on careers, go to I was going to say bookstore, but your Kindle or whatever it is that you want to open up, and go get professional development books that way. This is just a story of the time that I went back and I analyzed what I needed to do in order to start making more money. About 15 years ago, I sat down and decided to lay out a career plan for myself, and this is all about the kinds of decisions that I made along the way. So, in here, let's talk about this career guide to internals, but I have to give you a warning. We are going to be talking about money. I think that it's rather amusing that in a European conference, there's an American person giving this kind of topic. We're crass, we have no manners, and I'm going to be talking about things that are probably not normally discussed around the dining room table, like, say, salary. But I think about salary in kind of an indirect way. This is my dad. Dad and I went on a vacation several years ago, and this was the pinnacle of something that I'd wanted to do for a very long time with my father. My father had always wanted to see Alaska. He had seen it on TV shows like the Discovery Channel, The Deadliest Catch, and all that. We didn't come from a lot of money. We didn't come from any money. We came from like no money whatsoever. And my dad worked very hard to make sure that me and my sister had the things that we needed. So did my mom. I just don't have pictures of my mom and I on a vacation together that she would be okay with me sharing, because sometimes we both have bad hair days, as opposed to Dad, which is just having a no hair day. But of course, hopefully he doesn't watch this webcast when I say that. Dad could have never afforded to go to Alaska on his own. And it was very important to me over a decade ago when I started planning out my career that I wanted to be able to not just take care of me and my wife, but the people around us who we loved. I wanted to make sure that I could help make their dreams happen. To me, success is really all about taking the people that you love and making their dreams possible, things that they never could have done. This is my dad and I last year in the Isle of Man. Dad had never been to Europe before, and I got the opportunity to spend 10 days with him in the Isle of Man, and it was just absolutely wonderful seeing Europe again through his eyes. For me, it's so important to remember that your boss isn't really the one you need to make happy. You want to work to live, you don't want to live to work, or at least I don't. I love this quote from Lori Edwards in the SQL Server community. She says, always remember that the people you really work for are waiting for you at home, which is kind of weird because now in the days of coronavirus, everyone's waiting for us at home. I wanted to be able to make enough money that I could take care of the people around me. But when I look at salaries for us data people, they're not great numbers. I mean, they're okay. Don't get me wrong. We're not eating ramen noodles or anything. And I love ramen, but when I don't want to always have to just eat ramen. Here are some of the numbers from the salary survey that we do every year. And over on the left-hand side, that's in tens of thousands of dollars. You can see that the vast majority of our industry makes somewhere around 100 grand US per year. And of course, things are different in different countries, different health insurance standards, different retirement standards, and all of that. But if I look at this grid, back when I started planning my career, there wasn't a grid like this for data people, but I kind of intuitively knew that I was somewhere in the mainstream down here. Reality, I was often on the lower side of that. I was somewhere inside of here. But if I was going to take care of the people that I loved, I needed to be way up top. I needed to be higher than that because I also want to work as little as possible. I'm also lazy. I don't really like working at all. Don't get me wrong, what we're doing here, I enjoy this. This is a whole lot of fun to me. But you know what isn't fun is debugging stuff. Oh my God, this morning I was debugging dynamic SQL running on between Amazon RDS and Azure SQL. That's not fun to me. It's fun when I cross the finish line, but you know what? I would much rather be sitting on a beach drinking a margarita, reading about last night's episode of Big Brother. I have very bad taste. So when I started laying out what I wanted to do for a living, it took me so long to do it because I was nervous about what I was going to see. I didn't feel confident about myself or my ability to make a lot of money. And there's a great definition of procrastination that the really reason that we do it is about avoiding unpleasant emotions. Similarly, when I would think about what I wanted to do in the future in a career, I didn't have any kind of burning fire to get in one specific direction because I didn't know where that direction was. But I knew as I got older, I knew what success meant to me. Success meant doing things that were hard that I loved, that I could actually cross the finish line on. I didn't want to bang my head against the wall on debugging some script somewhere, and now here I am. Being surrounded by people I admire, working for a company that I respect, fair trade between the hours and the reward, and this is really important to me. There are times when I love working 80, 90 hours a week. There are times when I want to work 8 hours a week. There are times when I don't even want to work 8 hours a week. But I wanted to be able to turn that knob myself. I wanted to figure out, at an EU conference, I should say dial instead of knob, but there it is, one take, and we're off of here. I wanted to be able to turn that dial myself and figure out how much I wanted to work at any given time, or take 2-3 months off if that was what I wanted to do. This slide, what's important to me on here, this doesn't have to be what you are. Some people for career success, and I'm specifically talking about career success, some people want to save lives. Some people want to teach children how to read. Everybody's got their own different sets of goals. This is what was important to me in terms of my career. Not my family. Of course, you've already seen what's important to me around my family, but the times where I'm working, this is what's important to me. This is what's bad in terms of a career. And I'll let you read that list there to yourself. Job hunting success. How do I get into that career that I want? Job hunting success for me, when I sat down and thought about it, means not job hunting. Oh my God, job hunting sucks. I have been through so many recruiters and piles of resumes. Look, I know that now, today, you know who I am. That's why you're here. You know what my name is. You think that magically when I walk into restaurants, I get free booze and people part the seas and I just get the choice table up at the front and the chef comes out to greet me. No, of course, you know better than that. Nobody really knows me that well. I'm not really famous in the internet sense of the word. But for me, what job hunting success was that people would go, oh, I have this problem. I should hire Brent. And I didn't want to be in competition with anybody else. I wanted them to specifically say, oh, I have problem X. Let me get Brent Ozar involved. I know he knows what he's doing with this problem. If Brent's not available, I'll go find somebody else, y'all. But I just wanted to be the first person that they immediately thought of, and that was what success meant to me. So if I'm going to think, that's the wrong screen. So if I'm going to think about what kinds of work people are going to bring to me, if people are just going to bring me tasks, I want to think about what's the maximum value that I can extract as quickly as possible. Some work gets paid more than others. So I'm going to give you a quiz. And for each of the things that I'm about to tell you about, I want you to think about how much people are willing to spend in order to relieve that pain. At the end of the day, people get their wallet out for pain. So When I ask you these questions, I want you to figure out, are you going to Google it? Are you going to pay 50 bucks for a book? Are you going to spend 200 bucks on a video, 3 grand to go to a class or conference, or 10 grand to just have somebody go do it for you? Question number 1, you're building a brand new SQL server and you want to know how you should configure TempDB. Are you going to pay 10 grand for that? Of course not. How to configure TempDB, you don't really care. You're just going to pick one of these. You're probably going to go see, I'll Google it, how am I supposed to configure TempDB, and you're going to call it a day. No money's going to change hands when you want to learn how to configure TempDB. If you're going to make a career out of it, maybe, just maybe, you're going to spend 50 bucks to read a book, but there's so much stuff out of there, it's just simple and cheap. Next one. Your existing application, it's out in production, it does a lot of work in TempDB, it's slow, and users are complaining. Now, how do you fix problems with slow TempDB and queries? More specifically, what's the first thing you try? The first thing you try is probably up on the high side of this. Your boss isn't going to let you jump all the way down to here. You're still up in the cheap seats. Next. Your app is still slow, even after the team has read a lot of stuff, they've Googled things, and the slowness is keeping your business from shipping products. Your website's falling over, your machinery line's going down, your salespeople can't place orders. Now it starts to get a little bit more expensive. Because plus 2, if your boss says, well, look, we've got to fix this sooner rather than later, it's urgent and there's money involved, now you start to drift down to here. You may not even be willing to spend, say, 3 grand on some class or conference because that may not be available to you in the future, or it may just be videos that you're going to have to read and absorb, and it's going to take you some time to do it. And let's face it, you're probably going to get the answer wrong the first time that you try it. Let's try another one. You want to offload your reporting queries to a read-only server, and you want to figure out which SQL server makes the most sense. Is it an availability groups read-only secondary? Is it transactional replication? Is it log shipping? Is it a data warehouse like an ETL process? If you're picking which feature to use, which one do you do? In most shops, the business is going to say, well, the reason that we hired you is that you're the one who's going to do it. We're not going to hire an outside expert. Go get to work. Go start Googling. Go read a book. Go to a class. But say that you implement one of those features and the replication to the reporting server keeps breaking, whether it's an AG, transactional replication, your data, your ETL type tool, and your reports keep showing old data. What do you do in order to fix this? But you're probably going to start watching videos. Maybe you open a support call from Microsoft. Maybe you start learning about that feature that you chose and you start weeping in pain because you chose the wrong feature. But you're still probably not getting all the way down to $10,000 to hire an expert just because reports show out-of-date data. But what about this? Your replication keeps breaking, and every time that you reinitialize it, your primary server falls over and it takes your website down with it. This is the point where your boss elbows you out of the way and says, step aside, I've got the platinum card, go get whoever. Go get someone who's done this before. We can't afford to keep bringing production down. There's a pattern here. The first time or two that you're doing something, when you're just experimenting, no money changes hands. You're meeting with Google, your senior Google advisor, you're Googling for things, and the quality of what you find in Google is pretty good. I mean, I certainly enjoyed or Bing. I support alternative lifestyles, whatever. What you have to realize is there's this little grid here. How bad is the business pain, and how urgent is it? So I'm going to talk through a couple examples here. We're going to start over here in this grid. Things that aren't urgent and have mild or no business pain. Inside here, here's what the questions sound like. I'll let you read those. And no money changes hands here. If you want to be known, if you want to build a career as a person who solves non-urgent, mild pains, this is how you do it. You're going to be working at Stack Overflow. You're going to be posting books online type things. You can edit books online now. You can submit pull requests if you want to do that. You can do vendor webcasts. Pinal is one of the biggest names in our industry who does this. Pinal Dave runs SQL Authority. I guarantee you, when you've Googled things that were not urgent and not very painful, I guarantee you've hit his site and you've copy pasted scripts directly from there. And he hasn't charged you $1. Now, unfortunately, that means people probably aren't going to pay for this immediately. They might pay for it over time, but we'll talk about that. What about this? Very urgent, but it's not that painful to the business. Here's what the questions sound like. Part of the thing that's interesting here is that who it's urgent to isn't necessarily the people with the money. If you want to be known for fixing stuff like this, or if you just want to do it professionally, if you feel like you're going to be fulfilled by helping people, then there are plenty of options for you to do that. Working Microsoft support is a great example of that. If you want to be used to be solving very urgent pains, but are of a relatively low business value, this is the place where you do it. This is a grind. This never ends. There is an unbelievable, endless supply of idiots with servers. They're not learning, and even when they do learn, they're going on to another job, and there's an endless supply of people behind them building new servers and doing dumb stuff. There's not a lot of money down there. So how about here? For here, now we're talking about non-urgent but severe business pains, things that are longer term. For example, our reports are really slow when we're querying production. We should build a data warehouse. I should buy a boat. Nobody's building a data warehouse in 8 hours. It's just somebody will do it as a gimmicky kind of thing, but they're not going to build a full-blown production quality data warehouse inside the span of 8 hours. Usually there's a project manager involved. These things take weeks or months just to get everybody on board about how we want to move the data around. Same thing with changing storage. The business knows that they want to improve something, but you're talking about a time span that's going to take years. And there's a lot of money in this, not a little bit. There is a lot of money in this because these things are like wars in foreign countries. They drag on for years. There's billions of dollars involved. And once you get in there, you're like a cockroach sucking the server, just sucking the company's wallet dry. You can kind of tell by my tone of voice that that's not my bag. I was in that bag for a while, and I would rather not be anywhere near that bag. That bag smells like liquor and disappointment. So if you want to do that, if that is your bag, that you want to go plant yourself in somewhere and solve a very big business problem that isn't urgent at all, here's how you go about doing that. So their companies hire people in order to do this. You think great communicators, and they bring the great communicators in order to convince these big giant companies, General Motors, the United States Postal Service, Renault, whatever. You're going to go in there with a big flashy song and dance about technology. You're going to be the evangelist for whatever brand new technology you want to bring in, whatever development practices or patterns that you're trying to embed consultants in order to put in. And then you're going to end up with a whole team full of people who are there for a long period of time. You got to make sure not to get distracted. The same kind of thing pops up in online forums too as well. You'll see all the time questions over at Stack Overflow or dba.stack exchange where somebody says, hey, I need to build a data warehouse. What should I do first? Those people have no money. They have no idea what they're doing, and you should just stay as far away from them as possible other than to just type in, here's where to go get a book on the topic that you're interested in. Finally, down here, very urgent, severe business pains. Our SQL server is falling over and we can't ship products. Our databases are corrupt. Now the money is on fire. People are, it's really funny. I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten to work with a consulting client, and after we've started work, one of the people on the team has said to me, the boss handed me his credit card and told me whatever it costs, do it. Like that it's so severe for the business, just here, take my credit card, get whatever consultant it is, get them on a plane right now. We need help in the next 36 hours, that they want something immediately. That is very different because the sales cycles are short. There's not a lot of negotiating time as opposed to the last round that we covered where people are like, I should buy a boat. I should build a data warehouse. They're not building a data warehouse based on a 24-hour business need. It's a much longer sales cycle. So if you're going to specialize in this, who do you expect to get for a customer? Large businesses call large businesses. Small businesses like to work with small pain relief. Individuals call other individuals. People who are running, say, General Motors, they're not calling you or me. They're not going to Upwork or Fiverr in order to get their problem solved. Individuals, when you and I have a technology problem, sure, I want to talk to someone inside my network who solves that problem. Large companies keep a whole full team of experts on staff, or they'll hire a big, ginormous consulting firm who can bring in other experts for short periods of time. I'm not saying there's no money here. There is, but you need to be in one of these roles. You either need to be a full-time expert at the large company, or you need to work for a very large consulting company, or you need to work on the support teams at Microsoft, Pure Storage, whatever hardware vendor you want to go work at. Small to mid-sized companies, they don't have enough of these pains. The website's falling over, the SQL server's falling over, the database is corrupt. They don't have enough of these pains often enough that they're willing to keep a full-time staff on hand to solve these kinds of emergencies. That's where you and I come in. If you want to be a freelancer, a consultant, a short-term kind of consultant, then you can specialize in some urgent, severe business pain. Needs to be urgent, and it needs to be causing the business severe pain. And if you're known for that, they're going to call you, and they're going to have a very short sales cycle, and they're going to go, shut up and take my money. We're the first person, we keep seeing you in Google over and over again for this exact problem. How fast can we get you involved? It's less about long-term advice, and it's much more about how do we get you on a plane right now in order to come in and solve these problems. The more urgent and severe the pain, the faster the sales cycle. For example, I like it. For example, if you have database corruption, odds are your company's even probably going to hire several consulting firms at exactly the same time, farm the work out to them and say, whoever can finish the fastest, they're the ones who are going to end up getting our business. When the less urgent it is, hey, we need to go build a new server, odds are it's going to have a much longer sales cycle. You're not going to see the money anytime soon. Just as we saw with the non-urgent pains, you're going to see these pop up online as well. Somebody's going to pop into an online forum, into Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, and say, my SQL server's down right now. There's a message in the error log. What should I do? This person doesn't have any money. They are sending out a Hail Mary request for help. I am not saying you shouldn't help them. You see me in answering SQL help questions, stackexchange.com questions from time to time too. But for me, it's all about time. How much available time do I have to give back to the community? And when does it make sense to help one individual person at a time? If I personally, when I have the choice, I would much rather help 100 people than I would help one person. If I can build something like an online stream, a webcast, whatever, if I can teach a whole bunch of people something quickly, I will always take that over answering someone's urgent support call on Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange. That just doesn't scale to a long enough period of time. And I say that I know that as I say that, I'm kind of discouraging some of you from answering questions at places like Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange, SQL Server Central, and so forth. We'll talk about that. And you have to understand what you're getting paid for, or what you're getting paid with is a better way of saying it. When we're dealing with that mild or no business pain, things that pop up on Stack Exchange or things that people are just Googling for, what you get paid in is reputation. You can get paid in this over time, and it can bring you to a better job. Getting paid in reputation isn't necessarily bad. I'll talk about how I did that over time as well. But when you come over into this, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I like money. Money is good. Because remember why we're here. We're trying to take care of our families and our loved ones. And I can't take my dad on an Alaska trip with reputation. It just doesn't work that way. If you want to solve these and get paid in reputation, it's a long road. This is what I did. For years, this is what I did. Blogging about how you use Perfmon, how you manage counters, how do you do weight stats, how do you configure TempDB. If you Google for how to configure TempDB, I'm sure some of my stuff is going to pop up there, or other people that I've worked with over the years. If you're going to spend time blogging and presenting about topics like that have mild or no business pain, what you're blogging for is the job you want in 5 years, which is fine. If you want to get paid for a full-time living solving these mild or no business pains, like working at a Microsoft tech support line, for example, or Xerox, some big ginormous company, then the blog posts that you're writing, the presentations that you're giving, the streaming that you're doing, is all paying you forward for reputation. And then later on, you're going to end up getting that job. But it's the long road. Oh my God, it takes years. I toiled away writing stuff like this for 5-10 years before my career really took off. And the reason my career took off wasn't this column. The reason my career took off was this column. And I'm going to jump back a little and just talk about this. I really don't recommend this route because it takes so long. And you're not getting any younger. You're also not getting any more attractive. That's a problem because you weren't that attractive to begin with. Please give my session a high rating. That won't work out well. So the shorter route is to focus on solving the severe business pains, to write about how you solve these. Then you can either get yourself into a full-time job working at a large consulting company or working at large companies, think Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc. Or if you want to solve the very urgent pains, you can be a consultant that just focuses on that one pain. And in both of these, the payment here is money. And who doesn't like money? Now, I only have so many hours a day, so if I'm going to focus on building material to get myself known for something, I don't want to be famous telling somebody how long the optimal straw length is if you're going to be drinking margaritas. There's no money in that. If I'm going to be producing content, I'm going to be producing content right over in this column, the severe business pain column, because it's really all about how can I be known within the span of 1 year for solving some kind of critical problem? This is where things gets a little tougher. Now we're to the point where you're actually going to do the work. Because it's easy to say, I want to make a lot of money. I want to be known for solving hard problems. I want to get paid instantly when customers throw projects at me. That's easy. Now, how do you actually become known for doing that? The easiest way that I can tell you, the fastest route from where you are today to the point where I'm at, sooner or later I got to say something there, and if there's no elegant way to say that. The fastest way to get from where you are today to the point where you want to be, because who doesn't want to be me? Lots of you don't want to be me. I understand. I get it. We all have different tastes. Is to design a path towards something that you want to sell in 1 year. You want to be selling an ebook, a presentation, or an online class. You want people to see the abstract for what you're selling, and I'm going to jump back a slide. It's got to be about this, because if it's about this, remember, no money's changing hands. People aren't spending money for that. It's got to be about this, because when it's about that severe business pain, businesses will look and go, oh, Brent's teaching a session right here around mastering index tuning. It's a 1-day workshop, and when you come out of there, you'll be able to help us solve our indexing problems. Go get in that class. Here's $5 million. And of course, it's not $5 million. I wish it would. I would work even less. Write a plan to build that thing inside the span of a year and then work that plan. Your peers are going to tell you about all kinds of other, you should check out the new flux capacitor. You should spend some time reading about the G Golly Whiz Bang 2000. But you don't have much time. Derek Sivers has a brilliant post. Derek says, it takes many hours to make what you want to make. The hours don't just suddenly appear. You have to steal them from comfort. Whatever you were doing before was comfortable. This is not. This will be really uncomfortable. This really rings true for me. And let me tell you how I did it a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in my second SQL Bits session. When I first got started doing this, about 15 years ago, I sat down in a cafe in Lincoln Road on Miami Beach, and I wrote out the plan for how I wanted to get from where I was today to the point where I could sell something, where I could do like a one-day pre-con. When I sketched that out, I then made a little calendar and I looked at my time. And I said, okay, how much time do I have per week? And in the short term, you got to work more if you want to work less in the long term. And depending on how long you want to work, that short term may be really long. I've been busting my butt for like 10 years now. You know, what's the old joke? Why work 40 hours a week for somebody else when you can work 80 hours a week for yourself? Derek's talking about if you want to build something like a one-day workshop, a training class, a blog series, a webcast, whatever, you're going to have to put in the work to do it. And putting in the work to do it, you're going to have to just look at a calendar and go, what are the hours every week? Not once a month, every week. What are the hours every week where I can make progress towards that goal? For me, every weekend, today happens to be a weekend, the way that my wife and I's calendars work. I'm not working today. It's 7:34 a.m. in San Diego as I record this. My wife doesn't get up till 9 a.m. So my hours between like 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. are mine. I can do anything that I want and I don't feel guilty. I don't have to worry about it making money, paying me back, whatever. So those hours, for the longest time that we've been together, between like 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. on the weekends, has been my time to go build something forward. So that told me if I only have 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and I only have it Saturday and Sunday, that's 8 hours a week, and that's it. So if I'm going to sketch out a plan to go from zero to having a workshop already that I can sell, I can kind of back my way into it and go, all right, here's how many blog posts I have to write in that time span. Here's how many slides per day that I have to kick out. And it's just math. It's just how much can I actually kick out in the short time that I have. And then I got to make progress towards that goal. I know a lot of people who through the years, through the SQL Server community that I've met, who have said, oh, I want to have a workshop. I want to have a training class. I would like to have a book. I'm smart enough. I should be able to do all those things. Sure you are. But can you make the compromises necessary in order to set the time aside to actually do the work? There are a whole lot of blog posts and workshops out there where the first 3 pages are done and the rest are not. My goal of this session is not to get you to start doing work. I actually am okay if none of you ever do the work for this. Because there's a second goal of this session. It's not just about telling you what you would need to do to plan out your career to get somewhere. It's also to tell you this is what success looks like. If you wanted to build a training class, an ebook, a book, a webcast, whatever it is, that's what the finish line looks like, is you've got to map out all these hours that you're going to put in. And if you don't have that time, or if you have family commitments or work-life commitments, whatever, that's okay. Feel comfortable in doing that, but define what success looks like for you so you don't feel guilty. I never wanted to run my own company. I always wanted to be an employee of someone else. I like stability. I like health insurance taken care of by somebody else. Over in America, we have all kinds of interesting problems. But that's why I started right at the beginning of this session of explaining here's what success looks like to me. In order for me to take care of my family in the way that I wanted to take care of them, doing things like taking them on vacations, getting them certain kinds of gifts and whatnot, I had to go above and beyond in order to work that time problem out and work my rear end off. So now, having said all that, think about where you're going to work towards. If you're the kind of person where what success looks like to you is continuously answering questions, and believe me, people are so thankful when you solve their problem, but if you're facing an endless stream of people who are panicked and freaked out because their thing has broken, and if you don't mind not making big money and you want to just have that feel good reputation and building up a reputation of someone who's known as helping lots of people, if you want to be the next John Skeet, for example, John Skeet is not eating ramen noodles. There's money there. You just have to really hit it's like an NBA draft or a football, whatever. By the look, I don't know a lot of football players, and I know that we're going to stop there. So you can get there. It's just that you're going to have to work a help desk or answer Stack Overflow questions continuously for a long period of time. And you got to understand that you're not going to get really rich doing that. It's going to take endless years before anybody even knows who you are. Next up, if you want mild or no business pains that aren't urgent, go write blog posts. Pinal is such a great example of that. Everybody here knows who Pinal is. Everybody has seen his face on SQLauthority.com. I've been around him when he walks into conferences and people are like, I know you. That huge reputation, this is how you do it. Severe business pains, if you want to do severe business pains, but not very urgent, typically you're going to be working on a large consulting company, like you're going to be working for some GE, big giant firms. I don't know why, all the firms that I always think of are like broke or out of business. I always think Enron. I don't know why that is, but I grew up in Houston around that. Didn't grow up, but I was in Houston around that time, so I always think of Enron. Or very urgent, very urgent and very severe business pains. If you want to make money and start your own shop, if you want to hang out your hat and make money directly, this is the way that you do it. Focus on severe business pains that are very urgent. These have very short sales cycles. It's very easy for a business to go, oh, I've seen so-and-so over and over again online. We keep seeing him whenever we go search for our problem. It seems that he's the right person to hire. Let's go bring him in. Now, this dictates what you want to learn. Because the other problem that you and I face is that we're living in an amazing time for data and for computing. I am constantly amazed. Reading stuff like Hacker News, there are so many things that I want to go learn. I want to learn everything, but I can't. Even in every new version of SQL Server, we're so blessed that in every new version of SQL Server, there are more features. Machine learning, Linux, Kubernetes, Python, R. It just goes on and on every single version. So what are you going to focus on? Remember how we talked about, switch over here. Remember how we talked about you have a very limited runway. You've only got, say, 1 year if you're going to build out an entire training class. And in the time that you build it out, you're going to be learning about it. You're going to be writing about it. You're going to be sharing what you know, trying to become famous for that particular topic so that when companies have a problem with it, that they Google and find you directly, and then they want to get out the credit card. However, if you're going to do all of that inside the span of a year, there's also a ticking time bomb on the technology itself. And here's what I mean by that. For every technology, and I'm just going to pick one just because it's there, Kubernetes, SQL Server on Kubernetes. If you're going to work on Kubernetes, what if it doesn't get widespread adoption within a year? What if it doesn't get adopted by profitable businesses? What if it doesn't have urgent pains? What if it works well enough right out of the box? Or what if businesses aren't running production on it, so the business pains aren't urgent, like they're using it just for development? Or what if it changes too quickly to give you a return on your time investment? That's a really interesting one for me because I know about another presenter who ran into problems with it, and I'm going to tell you his story. Switch over here. Change my little white balancing on the camera to get that a little bit more. There we go. No, that doesn't work at all. Hold on a second here. Let me switch that around. Come back to this one. So I talked about you have a year, right? You have 1 year from start to finish, assuming that you want to see progress within a year. You want to like be able to ship something within a year. You have 1 year. So this person that I knew built a training course around rapidly evolving technology, a technology that was changing all of the time and had a lot of business interest at the time. Businesses were like, we got to go in production on this. This buzzword's amazing. Let's get some of that buzzword as quickly as possible. So this person built a training course around that buzzword technology. And by the time that that person finished the training course, it was out of date because the technology changed so fast. I know you've done it just like the rest of us. You've gone and Googled something, you've watched a YouTube video, you've watched a Pluralsight class. And when you're watching the class, you're going, that's not right. That's the way it worked 2 years ago, and it doesn't work like that anymore. You, as if you're going to be the presenter, if you're going to be the person shipping that knowledge, you've got to watch that the technology isn't changing so rapidly that it's expired by the time that you shipped it, because you don't have that much time. Remember, you only have a limited number of hours per week in order to ship a class. I'll give you a great example from my own life, Power BI. I love Power BI. It's amazing. It's baller. It does so many cool things. But you know what? If I'd have written a Power BI class 2 years ago, I'd have had to set it on fire because everything about Power BI has changed. This is a risk of working with brand new, rapidly adopting technologies. Azure SQL database is another one. If you'd have written a class about Azure SQL DB in the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years that Azure SQL DB was out, you'd have had to set it on fire every year because things kept rapidly changing. That's the curse and blessing of the technology ages that we live with. Your holy grail, the thing that you should really look towards, is a technology that has widespread business adoption, expensive urgent pains, and has been the same for a while, at least a couple few years, so that as you build material on it, it's going to be evergreen for long enough that it pays you so that you can do some passive income work and start building the training class or the consulting practice or whatever around the next big thing. So to succeed, the end of this, what you really have to do is pick a technology or feature. Now you have some perspective around how you pick that. It needs to be a little bit more stable. It needs to be a little mature, enough that there are some expensive pains on there that you want to relieve, that companies with money can actually go, yes, we've used this and we have a specific pain and it's urgent and it's high business value. Understand the urgency and severity of that pain so you can understand whether you're going to make money doing it. And then build yourself a 1-year roadmap to write everything that you learn and know about that technology. Remember that the whole reason you're doing this is for your own personal success. Whatever your own personal success is. For me, it kind of sounds backward, but I want to work as little as possible. I want to get to the end as quickly as I can. Doesn't mean that I want to retire full time. I don't mind working just to some short periods of time, but I want to be able to take lots of time off each year with my family and goof off as much as I possibly can. That's what success meant to me, and that determined the choices that I made. And the one set of words that I'd leave you with are Laurie Edwards. Remember that the people that you work for are waiting for you at home. There's probably never been a more appropriate time to say that, given everything that happens in the world. But don't miss a chance to spend some time with the people that you love.